This video explains everything you need to know about a plan of manufacture for your NEA. So let's remind ourselves, what is a plan of manufacture? Quite simply, it is just a detailed list of instructions that explain how you would make your product if you were given the opportunity to do so. And when you write this, it needs to be in a workshop setting. So quite literally, if you went into your school workshop right now and you had to make your final design, how would you do it? That is a plan of manufacture. So what should a plan of manufacture actually look like? It can honestly be displayed any way that you see fit, any way that you see comfortable, but my main suggestion would be to lay it out as a table with rows and columns, just because it just makes the information far more clearer, and it helps you to keep track of what you have already written. But in the past, students have also written their plan of manufactures as just paragraphs, so similar to an essay style of writing or a flow chart as well. But it is completely up to you, but I would highly recommend the table. So as I stated previously, I would highly recommend that you lay your plan of manufacture out as a table, just because it makes the information really clear and easy to read, but it also helps you to keep track of what you have already written. So this is an example. This is just an example as to the columns that you can include. You can take some out, you can add more. Again, it is completely up to you, as long as you have clear information as to how you would make this product if you were in a workshop setting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each column to explain what I've put and why I've put it. So the first column is just steps and numbers, so the order in which these steps would be followed. The second is the instruction. So this is just the information that says this is what you do here. So it doesn't need to be big full sentences, but it can be. Traditionally, short, brief sentences or even bullet points. Again, it's however you feel comfortable laying out this information. Next would be the parts required. So for this one, you can refer back to either your final design or you can refer back to your parts list if you have one. It's just to help, again, keep the information clear, because the idea of this plan is you can then hand it to anyone and they will be able to make it. So think about an IKEA flat pack or any flat pack furniture that you may have built in the past. Traditionally, for each instruction it says you need part A, B, F, 3, etc. So it just helps to keep the instructions really crystal clear and the flow of the manufacturer at a really good pace. Next is the materials and the equipment that you need. So this obviously includes the material that you're making your product out of, and it also includes the equipment that you would need for that specific stage of the process. Quality control is all about what will you look for in the product once the step is completed. So for example, if you've just written about a step where you've used a fret saw to cut your pieces to size, once you've cut those, what will you actually look at? What would you look for in order to check that your work is okay? A really clear example of this is, once you've used a fret saw, you might want to actually measure the piece to make sure you've cut it to the right size, and maybe you've not gone in too far into your pencil line, or maybe you've not left a bit too much waste, which you then need to sand off. It could be that you just visually assess it to make sure it looks okay. It might even be that you just check the edges to look for any really rough marks or rough saw marks, which again, you'll sand out later. So it's just looking for any imperfections or errors before you continue on to the next step. Because traditionally, if you have cut the pieces to the wrong size, or if you feel like there's too many imperfections, traditionally you would start this step again. So that's the whole point of quality control, is to make sure that the product you're making is being made to the highest of qualities. Quality assurance is really similar to quality control, except quality assurance isn't about checking the product itself. It's about the actual stages or the whole process of the manufacturing process. For example, if we go back to the previous example of using a fret saw to cut the pieces to size, Part of the quality assurance would be checking that that machine is safe and ready to use, checking that the blade is the correct blade, checking that the blade is has enough tension so that when you start cutting it won't bend and immediately snap. Checking that the extraction is on to remove any excess dust so that as you are cutting you keep your work nice and level. It's also checking that the machine has been serviced, but also making sure that you have the correct training to use that piece of equipment. So it is about making sure that the product is made to the best quality, but instead of visually assessing or checking the product itself, it's visually assessing the area and the tools in which you're working with. And finally, we have health and safety considerations. So keep it really simple. This one doesn't always get really technical. It is the most obvious things, and that is absolutely fine. Things you need to think about are, if you were in the workshop right now making this product, what would you do to keep yourself safe? So Captain Obvious is always personal protective equipment, or PPE. Do you need goggles because you're on a machine? Should you take your tie off to make sure it doesn't get caught or anything? Or should your lovely long hair be tied back? Make sure you keep your workstation clear, so any tools you're not using, put them away. Really simple but obvious things that you just need to remind yourself of. So if you get a little bit stuck, just put yourself in that workshop setting again. Just think, what would Miss yell at me for in order to keep me safe? What would she remind me to do? All right, and that will really help you. Again, it could be written as full sentences, but traditionally, nice short bullet points is all you need. So I wanted to talk through a WAGOLL as to what a good one would actually look like to give you an idea. And I've started off with the very first step that you would need for any project, and that is the marking out. So I'm going to go through each one by one for you. So the first one is obviously the number step, so step number 1. Next we have the instruction. I've simply put mark out pieces. Boom, that's it. And then I've stated sides, front, back and base, because they're the pieces that I'm marking out. For this, I have no parts required because I haven't made them yet. I'm cutting them out. So I've put NA, not applicable. But you could just leave it blank. You don't need to put NA. I've stated the materials that I need. So I am using 6mm MDF. I've stated the thickness there. That's really, really important. If you're putting pine or oak or plywood, acrylic, aluminium, whatever the material, don't forget to state the thickness of it. You don't have to necessarily state the size because that might be mentioned elsewhere, maybe on your final design or your parts list, but you do need to state the thickness of the material. Again, just so that if anybody is following this, they all know the thickness that they require. And then I've just put the tools I would need. So marking out, really simple, a pencil, a tri-square and a rule. Nice and easy breezy. Quality control. Check the right size has been marked out. That's it. That's all I need to do. So once I've marked out all those pieces, I'll just measure them again to make sure they are the right size. That's all I need for quality control. Quality assurance. Again, really short bullet points here. Make sure the tri-square is a right angle, because that's the whole point of a tri-square. It gives a 90-degree angle. It means that whatever lines you mark away from the edge, they will be vertical or horizontal. They'll be accurate. The other area of quality assurance here, to make sure that my pieces are drawn accurately, I've stated hold the stock of the tri-square against the edge of the material. So it's just a reminder, that's what you need to do, and that's what I would do to ensure that the piece that I mark out here is accurate and I have nice 90-degree edge lines away from the edge. Really nice and simple, short bullet points. And then finally, the health and safety considerations. I'm not using anything sharp. I don't need to worry about PPE at this point. I don't need to worry about anything. So all I've done is to really, what would Miss nag me to do if I was in the workshop? Put tools away when no longer needed. Boom, that's it. That's all you need to do. Put tools away when no longer needed. Like I said previously, don't need to be huge essays. Don't need to be full sentences. Really short, to the point, not very technical, but it's accurate and it helps to keep you safe. So one of the most common questions I get is, do I need to write about absolutely everything? The answer is kind of yes and no. You should write about all the stages of your manufacture. However, you might have 2 or more steps that are the exact same, and then it makes it quite silly if you're just duplicating all that information, if you're just having to write it out twice again. So if we look at this drawer, for an example, on the right hand side, I've got 3 drawers there. Now, I'm pretty certain that when I go to make them, they will be the exact same. So instead of saying in my manufacturing plan, drawer 1, mark out, measure, blah, 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 drawer 2, drawer 3, I could just put for drawer 1 and 2 and 3, I would follow steps and then whatever numbers they are. So I just state, these are the instructions I would follow for the drawers, instead of having to actually write out each step 3 separate times. Just helps with your workload, and also just helps to minimize the amount of writing that you have to complete as well. So this is the final WAGOLL, this is the final slide. It's just an example to show you what a finished page looks like. This is only one of, I believe, 2 or 3. They've used different columns to me, and that's absolutely fine. They've mentioned time as well, absolutely fine. They've not got quality assurance, but they've got quality control. I would advise that you have both, but again, it is completely up to you. It depends on what you feel is necessary for your stage of make. But that is it for this video. I do hope you found it useful. Do feel free to watch it again and pause at any stage if necessary, and have fun with your own plan of manufacture.